10 seconds.
We'll rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Wendy, you want to take the roll call?
Mike Hobsons.
Here.
Marilyn Ertley. Here. Deborah Nelson. Here. Don Vanny.
Here.
Jan Schletty.
Here.
Jessica Stickles. Here. Michelle Blythe.
Here.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Question?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have quite a few items on our workshop this evening, so we'll jump right into the first one. Welcome, Chief Kraske. It's an interlocal agreement with Fire District 21 for fire protection.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. It's been a while since I've presented anything to you, so nice to see everybody. Tonight before you, I have an interlocal agreement with Fire District 21, also known as Arlington Heights or Arlington Rural. And the back, kind of the history on this is 60 years ago, in around 1960, 1961, Fire District 21 was formed as a rural fire protection district in Snohomish County. However, for whatever reason, how they laid the district out, the Snohomish River cuts almost 50% of the district in half, almost equally on each side in geographical area. So since the district was formed in the early 60s, they've contracted with the city of Arlington to provide coverage to the south side of the district, with the intention of someday building a fire station on the south side. So this contract has been several things over the years, from a monetary payment to a supply of fire apparatus to purchasing of equipment. I remember at one point, roughly 20 years ago, they purchased new SCBAs for us as compensation for providing coverage. At one point, they were providing us a fire engine and a water tender that we could use at our discretion anywhere in the city, but it was to provide coverage to the south side of the district. As in more recent years, it's gone on to be more of a monetary payment. And before you tonight is an ILA for kind of a creative way, in that they have purchased property on the south side of the district on the McElroy Road, and they are going through the process of building a new fire station. So on a separate matter, they're working with the city and Jim Kelly on providing water to that site. But they have that expense coming up of running the water line, building the fire station, and developing. So what they proposed, after we were first talking monetary and trying to figure out what that would be, and then they proposed this idea that I thought was a little interesting at first, but as I thought about it and looked into it, I think it's creative and it's going to benefit both of us, is that the compensation for us providing coverage to the district for the remaining 10 months of 2021 will be, they're going to provide us with a second basic life support unit. So it'll be just like our 847. It'll be a basic life support transport unit, and they'll supply the unit and the 2 personnel that work on it. About 80% of the time, it will be a full-time member and a part-time member, but then based on some vacation day commitments and things they have, about 20% of the time, it'll be 2 part-time members. The unit will be housed at Station 46 downtown, and it will operate as one of our units. They're just paying for the staffing, the maintenance, the fuel, everything on the unit. If it does a transport within the city of Arlington, within our city limits, we will retain the transport revenue for that, as well as we will retain a portion of the transport revenue in the district that the new station will how do I say this, geographically be challenged to cover. So the area between like the city and Island Crossing, the Cemetery Road, the Schloman Road, if you know where that is, there's some areas that even when the new station is open, they're still going to be challenged to cover. So those areas we retain the transport revenue on. If they do a transport up off like the Burn Road or McElroy Road with that unit, then they will retain the transport revenue. If that unit is busy, let's just say hypothetically, if that unit is on a call for us at Olympic Place, and then our BLS unit responds on a call up in the district into one of those grids off of Burn Road or McElroy Road, then we will retain the transport revenue. So it's pretty It's diving pretty deep operationally, and that's why I wrote the white paper for you all last Friday. Thanks, Wendy, for helping me get that out late Friday afternoon, in hopes that it would answer some of the questions. I really think this is a positive thing for both agencies for the rest of the year. For the 2 months that we did not cover, that we were not compensated, January and February, the monetary payment will be $23,000 per month for 60 or $46,000. As well as if we terminate the contract for whatever reason, that becomes the monthly rate of compensation for coverage. And just in comparison, in all of 2020, we were compensated $123,000 for coverage. Can I answer any questions? I'm anticipating some good ones.
All right, let's start with Deborah.
Hi, Dave. Good to see you.
Hi, Deborah.
I'm just curious. So the two staff people that will be staffing this unit are District 21 staff. What if they get sick? Are we going to cover our people? Because we're always kind of short.
Mm-hmm. And we have, so if you remember last year, we had one of our members, Greg Kuntz, that was the captain up at their fire station in the Heights, and they in exchange had someone down here to backfill that spot. There were times that their member had called out sick, that they were unable to fill it. The agreement that I have with Chief Schmidt is they will backfill the spot, even if it means moving their personnel that are on duty from Station 49 up at Arlington Heights down to the city.
So our people will not be expected to staff that unit.
We will not.
Would they be comfortable if we put that into the agreement?
Yeah, I think so. And I think if they didn't, if the person, our crews work a 48-hour shift, so let's say hypothetically the person called out sick for 2 days, it would resort back to that daily fee of that $23,000 per month rate.
We do that, or because we are in a pandemic and we have the ability to lose crews for a period of time if somebody's exposed and everybody has to go into quarantine, even if they paid, if we had to backfill that unit, because once we have that unit working for us, it would be hard for it to not be available sitting there, but just not have the personnel. But rightfully, District 21 should pay for the staffing of it. However it gets staffed, should they not be able to provide staff.
Okay.
I agree.
Jan?
So if the RFA passes, Dave, does this contract stay in effect the way we've got it set up right now?
It does. Chief Cermak has read over the agreement, as well as their Commissioner Larry Longley, and both feel that it's a short enough period of time. It's for 10 months, and it can be renegotiated or extended, that they feel comfortable with it for that 5 months if the RFA vote is successful tomorrow night.
Okay.
Michelle?
I don't have a question, but thank you. I had some questions earlier today, so thank you, Dave. And I also wanted a little bit of background information so I could learn more about it. So to me, in reading this and the attachment that you sent, it seemed like there's not really a way we can lose from it. And it just seems like it's a great opportunity to partner and share and do what we might potentially be doing anyways in the future. So I think it sounds like a really a great way to help each other.
I think it is. And just over the weekend, we had 2 times over the weekend that an outside agency had to come in and do a BLS transport for us because our unit was busy. So this will eliminate that. So we'll retain that transport revenue.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, next up, we have the petition for the Lindsay annexation. Mark.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. So the city is in receipt of a 10% petition for annexation from the Lindsay annexation area. And so I've provided quite a bit of information for you in the way of process, the map showing where this is, and really what we incur should this annexation go through. So this would be a master plan neighborhood, which means we have the opportunity to work with the property owners in order to create the master plan and possibly an EIS for this as it moves forward. So we can identify impacts to to the city in the way of infrastructure and services that would be needed for the annexation area. And so as you see through the process here, this is the 10% assessed value of the properties. They tell us that they have over 60% of the agreement. And so they just want to move forward with the 60%. But there are three things that council has to answer here. Number one, whether to allow the subject properties to annex in Arlington, whether or not to amend the boundaries, and whether or not to require proportionate shared indebtedness be assumed. And if these items are agreed upon by city council, then proposed annexation may continue to the next phase of the annexation, and that's a 60% petition.
Thank you, Mark. Start with Deborah and then we'll go to Jan.
Hi, Mark.
Hi, Deborah.
Could you tell me what the discussion of the Planning Commission was on this? Does anything stand out or anything we should know of what their thoughts were?
There was no opposition to this from Planning Commission. They just wanted to know about what the next steps were and how the master plan neighborhood would move forward. So I kind of went through that initially with them and let them know that as this progresses and if the annexation goes through and is approved, that both Planning Commission and City Council will see iterations of a master plan neighborhood come to both for comment.
So the master plan overlay will, if this proceeds forward, will come through council for us.
That is correct. It has to be voted on and approved by council.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, Jan, did you have a question?
I noticed that the biggest landowner there was the Stillaquamish tribe. And I'm looking at the map and I know that they had purchased the corner and which included the gun club. So on the map that was included in the agenda, could you tell me how many sections over on the right-hand side they have?
So if you look on the right-hand side, see the bold red line to the far right?
Yes.
What this isn't identifying is that green line should have continued up along the right-hand side. Those are the parcels that are already within the city limits.
Okay.
So the gun range is the kind of a trapezoidal looking piece. And then the corner parcel is the one that's kind of a panhandle shape. The property within the red area, within the annexation area, there is a single family residence up there with a small barn. And so those are the parcels you're looking at that Stillaquamish tribe is included within the annexation area.
Okay, so I know, so how many people who own the land actually live there, or are some of the people who are wanting to annex don't actually live up there?
I think they all reside up there.
Oh, okay. Okay. But we don't know what they're thinking, whether it's going to be zoned what? What is it right now?
So, well, it's zoned, currently it's residential ultra low capacity.
Oh, okay.
Because there's no utilities to it. It's an unincorporated county at this point in time. It's in our UGA, but it's in unincorporated county, just like East Hill is.
Oh, okay. So if they were to move all the way through, the homeowners or whatever they decide, maybe even say they sold some of the property for development, they would be responsible for running the water and sewer, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Jessica and then Mike.
So a couple of quick questions. Overall big picture when it comes to annexation is if they're in the UGA, then that's the grand plan is to eventually incorporate these neighborhoods into the city, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so we're just kind of deciding whether now is a good time or whether it makes sense financially, that kind of thing. But is there any cost to us if we're not obligated to get water to these properties?
No, this is actually fairly simple to get utilities to. Utilities are along 172nd already. It's just an extension into these properties from the north to the south.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mike?
Yeah, my question is dovetails with Jan's. The underlying zoning is ultra low capacity, as you described it. What would be the zoning capacity for a master plan? What would be the density of a master plan neighborhood, or is that open, or how would that work?
So the way the master plan is currently laid out in the AMC, it divides the property by 50%. So 50% would be lower capacity, lower density as it's described in the AMC. The other 50% would be high capacity or commercial or a mixture thereof.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, just a couple of quick questions. You said the 3 conditions, the third one was they pay a proportional share of the indebtedness. Can you explain to me what that means? I'm unfamiliar with that.
So they agree to incur the debt of the indebtedness of the city. So things that are owed, bonds, instruments like that, they would become a party to that once they annexed in.
Thank you.
Existing.
So they're not exempt from the indebtedness of the city.
So they're assuming the existing tax everybody else is paying. Okay.
Correct.
My other question is just a kind of a bookkeeping one on the notice of intention to commence page that you sent us with the signatures on it.
Yes.
The fourth one, is that one crossed out or is that just a line across the page?
As soon as I scroll to it.
Looked like it to me. It looked like it might have been a cross out for because of a duplication.
That is,
But there's 2 different parcel numbers on both.
yeah, there's 2 parcels in there. So I think that what they thought is that they had to sign for both. But the signature, you know, it's all in the 10% assessed value. So if one signature should cover both of those, no matter how many parcels, because he still had, I see the attorney's on, so I'll let him explain that.
Well, it appears to me that the property owner that signed on line 3 had 2 parcels. And that's they started to sign on line 4 and then realized that could be confusing. So they crossed it out and then continued to sign on the 5th line. That's what it appears to me.
I just wanted to be sure our documents were reflecting what I was thinking. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions for Mark? And so Mark, I just want to understand again, you said when the 60% petition comes through and we move towards annexation, we get to see the master plan development plans before the annexation or afterwards?
No, it's after. It's just that they know that they're going into this obligated to have to do a master plan of the area.
So there was a master plan for that area at one time when it was put into our UGA, wasn't there?
That was with Barclays North. They did come in with a proposed plan at the time, but that would be null and void at this point in time.
Do you think it would be worth it sending that to the council who wasn't here then so they could just have a vision of what that was going to look like at one time, or do you think it will be vastly different?
Oh, it'll be vastly different. But I mean, I can scrape that up and send it to everyone if they want to have it for reference. But it was not a very pretty development layout. It was all cul-de-sacs.
I think that would be confusing to have something from the past that's not going to pertain to the present.
Well, it could be, maybe we could send it with the notes of what wouldn't be allowed that was on it today. So, you know, we wouldn't allow all the cul-de-sac developments in there. So I think it would give the council people who weren't here when this was discussed in depth, it was before my administration, some better background on how far this process went along last time.
I personally think that would be helpful, just to have some sort of visual.
Let me see what I can find.
Or maybe you don't have it and that's cool too. But.
Search through the archives.
Yeah.
It was a long time ago, so my request is if it's available.
Okay.
Or is there a sample of what we would like to see rather than what we wouldn't like to see? Because I hate to see the 7 of us get hung up on the past, and then that's not to pertain to us. So,
well, the one thing about the past is that it is no longer allowable by code. So I'd gladly show it if I'll find it.
I agree, Deborah. I would like to see what the landowners are envisioning for the development, even if, just roughly. I think that would be helpful.
I wouldn't mind seeing something that's a possibility, but.
Yeah, I agree with Deborah.
This will be a tough assemblage of properties to develop. There's a lot of topography, a lot of wetlands, a lot of critical area on these parcels, with a stream that runs right down through the center of it.
Lots of trails.
Lots of trails.
So one last question. I know we're really pushing for the expansion from 67th up to Highway 9. So if this does go through, can we include an easement for that expansion, or does that just have to wait till it comes up?
No, if this was annexed and the development ensued, then they would be responsible for frontage improvements.
Okay, so we
along these properties.
Widen the road. Okay.
Correct.
Any other questions for Mark on this one? Don?
Right, to piggyback to Jan's question, Mark. So we've got the water lines and stuff now running along 172nd. With the future plans of widening that, would that stuff have to be moved over to one direction or the other for the widening improvements?
No, actually, the utilities only run parallel in the roadway for a certain distance, but there are points of connection that would be at perpendicular to the properties. So they would have to extend over from north to south and then loop that entire system.
Yeah, I'm just thinking down the road, if once this development gets going, if we do have widening of that road and don't have to tear up roads again to fix. And
no, all the widening would occur to the south. So everything on the north would remain. Okay,
perfect.
Just a reminder too, it was just a year or two that I remember we approved, is it called a pumping station or something that increased the pressure up there on top of the hill for in that area? Do you remember, Mark?
They did a pressure station which affected the east side of Highway 9.
Okay.
And that whole entire area up there. I know that they're looking to do an expansion and change to a higher water zone also, but that would affect the East Hill area more than it would this. I think there are some things that still need to be looked at in the way of water servicing this area and pressure. I know that we're dealing with that with the property on the north side. That would be the northwest corner of Highway 9 and 172nd.
Okay, thank you. Something to talk to Jim about.
Other questions, comments? Okay, so we'll move to the next item, which is the proposed revisions to the, am I on the right one? Yeah, proposed revisions to Arlington Municipal Code Title V, Business License and Regulations. Mark.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. So the City of Arlington is entering into a contract with the Department of Revenue, and this will be related to business license services provided by the state. So the state will take over our business licensing and renewal process as a part of this partnership here. So the revisions that you see that are listed here on AMC Title V are revisions that are necessary in order for the state to be able to conduct that function of issuance of business license. And then there were a couple of updated language items within that, within Title V also that were included within this update. So I've given a list of the corrections that are proposed, and then of course provided you with the strikeout version of AMC Title V also.
Are there any questions, Jan?
I just have a couple. First of all, was there a particular reason we're switching and going that way? And second, I didn't see that it was going to cost us anything. So the state's just going to pick up our licensing without charging us, or are the fees going to go up, or how does that work?
So what happens is that the problem that's always existed is that the state requires a business license for a state business license. Each city requires a business license. So it always becomes kind of a confusing thing for people when they think they get their state license. They don't think that they have to have a city license along with that. So it just becomes a little problematic, and it's a huge undertaking for staff in order to do business license issuance and renewals. And so the state is taking that over there. It will be a one fee then going to the state in order to accomplish these the business license issuance.
This was a mandated change by the state. They passed this 2 years ago during the legislative session.
Oh, okay. Thank you. That answers my question.
I had one question, and I don't have my marked up copy here with me tonight, but it might be a Steve Pipel question. In one area, it said that if you're applying for a license on land you didn't own, you needed to have something that showed the permission of the landowner. And I'm just wondering how is there a way we can accommodate that with our tenants who lease from us at the airport so that they have, they're not sending a 30-page lease every time they have to renew their business license?
When we have that, we would have that on file. I mean, it's just a matter of, we still run and control all the regulatory process of the business license. So that would really fall upon us to provide a copy of that. So if we have a copy of that on file, it's just a matter of sending that or confirming that, yes, they do hold a lease or title to the property.
It's something we know because right now we know the tenants at the airport and they come to us for a business license. But now that we involve the state, I just hope we think about how those processes work so we don't frustrate our business clients at the airport who lease land from us.
We're still a part of the process, though. That's what I'm saying, is that the application comes in, they send that to us, we review it, we give our comments back to the state before the issuance of the license. So it's still up to us in order to show that documentation and approve for the license.
Deborah?
I didn't hear the answer for Jan's question about the money part. So when they pay the state, will the city portion come to us, and is the state keeping a part of that for their services, or are we just contracting with them, Mark? How's that working?
We are contracting with them.
And so could we have that amount on the item at the meeting next week? It doesn't show.
Well, the state retains the fee.
So none of the money comes to this city.
That's my understanding, correct?
Okay, so that'll be a loss of income.
Correct.
We still get our license fee.
The state will remit back to the city's portion of the license fee.
Right.
Okay. But we're not paying them to do this, it's just a service?
I think if there's
Correct.
any payment, it would probably be on the applicant.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're
The
welcome.
only charge for us is if we ask for additional work to be done by the Department of Revenue.
Okay, thank you. I missed all that.
It's been a while since that bill passed.
So will this be less work then for city? Because we're not getting paid, so it kind of balances out because.
Less work for both the city and for our businesses. We found that out in the COVID relief. We were surprised at how many businesses didn't understand they had to have a city business license. And some who had been in business 10 more years and had never had a city business license. So this should help clear up that misunderstanding because they get it all at one time.
So to give you a little idea, Marilyn, is that when we do renewals during the year, we have to do a citywide posting of business license renewals to all the businesses. That's almost $4,000 a year that we're spending in order to notify people, plus all the staff time it takes and documentation to do those renewals.
Well, good. It sounds like on the surface, it looked like, oh, we're not going to get that revenue, but we're really coming out ahead, or at least neutral, because we don't have to do the extra.
We are from an impact to staff. That's certainly true.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and the business owners are coming out ahead also because it's completely efficient a process for them now.
One-stop shop.
Yeah.
Questions on the changes to the AMC?
Nope.
Okay, we'll move to the next item, which probably was about all the questions we were asking. It's the ordinance to approve the contract with the State Department of Revenue for business licensing services. Now we see who actually read that.
Yeah. So here's the draft ordinance for partnering with the Department of Revenue for the Business License Service Program. The city shall retain its regulatory authority over its business licensing and other regulatory activities, except as expressly delegated by the contract. And so I should have provided you a copy of the contract, I guess, so you would have had that information.
We can include it in next week's packet. That would be helpful.
Yeah, I will do that. Pardon me for not doing that.
Mark, when
So I
did
did give some information on the process here, though, that was provided with the state. And we're just now starting with the state. We've only done introductions and discussed what we need to provide the state in order to get up and running on this program, because it is brand new for us also. So just give you a list of the benefits to the businesses, benefits to the cities or to the city. The enhanced services. And then, of course, the state requirement. And I also provided the list of other jurisdictions who are contracting with the state also for the same service. We're actually a year late on this. I thought we were going to go into this a year ago, but it was delayed.
When will it take effect once we sign the contract for our businesses?
This will be, we do our onboarding in the summer.
So for next year's business license.
Next year business license, correct.
Any other questions on the ordinance? We'll move to your next item, Mark, which is a declaration of right-of-way by Grandview 4-lot short plat for 4th Avenue.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So a typical dedication of right-of-way. There was development that occurred here. It was a 4-lot short plat. Frontage improvements were required for the short plat, and so dedication of right-of-way had to occur for that, for those improvements to be installed. provided you with the legal description and the exhibit map of the dedication itself, as well as the illustrative map.
Thank you. Is there any comments or questions from council? It's nice to see the map both ways, even if it's an odd shaped dedication. Jan?
Yeah, I just had, I don't have a question for you. I
Oh.
just needed you to not be here when I'm asking. On the corner there, I was just curious, is that for sidewalk, ADA, that it's split the
You
way?
mean the angle of it?
Yeah,
There's a driveway, so there's improvements that occur there because there's access off of that corner into one of the lots. So we do have curb gutter, sidewalk, planter strip all occurring in there, and this is at an intersect point, so it has to come down around the corner to tie into future improvements further on 4th Street, going towards the next street over here to the
okay.
east.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on that one? Okay, we'll move to the next one, which is the dedication of right-of-way by Swire Coca-Cola for 63rd Avenue.
So a portion of this project came to you last year, and that was the dedication of 63rd over the Smart Cap property. Swire Coca-Cola retains 5 acres that was along the 63rd alignment. The construction is done, has been completed and been accepted by the city. This is just, we need to get the dedication of the property from Swire recorded.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions from the council? We have a handful of dedications here, so no questions on that. We'll go right to the next one, which is the dedication of right-of-way by PUD for 63rd Avenue.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So same thing, dedication of right-of-way for 63rd. This will be constructed as a part of the PUD project. So this will be slowly but surely, we're getting all of 63rd constructed as we move along. So the remaining pieces are, there's still a segment between 180th and the PUD property that's on the old Bayliner site that hasn't been dedicated to us yet. And then there'll be a portion of this across the pick and pole to the south. And properties, there's 2 other parcels that we have to acquire right away, and construction of right away of the 63rd alignment out to 172nd beyond this. But this gets us the the bulk of the 63rd done. And then of course at the north end, we'll have to have some dedication of right away to make that connection into 188th at sometime in the future.
Are you working with the pick and pull in the old Bayliner site? Are you working with those people to negotiate? Pick and pull is kind of tricky there.
Yeah, the pick and pull will be a little different to deal with. There's some issues going on there with their drainage and how the property is being used that we have to address anyways. And so maybe that's the point in time that we start to negotiate with right away across that property. With the Arlington manufacturer site, dedication is supposed to occur. We have an agreement with them, but that hasn't occurred yet. And that will be simultaneous with both the 180th dedication also, because we still have to get that dedication from 67th all the way to the terminus to the east.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark. Any other questions on that one? Okay, we'll move to your next one, which is the dedication of right-of-way by Gateway Business Park for 197th. And then also another dedication by Gateway Business Park for 74th. We'll combine those up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So yes, 2 separate dedications here. The first one is for the alignment of 197th. This will be for in the future, so that we are just making provisions that there will be a connection between 67th Avenue and Arlington Valley Road, 74th Avenue at some point in the future.
Any questions on that part? No?
So is this going to go all the way to the Arlington Valley Road, Mark?
This will be, a portion of that will be constructed as they're developing the site. They just need a connection for, with the binding site plan. It's hard for you to see on this, but the buildings that are out along 67th were separate parcels from the remainder of the property. So this dedication was a part of the binding site plan for the eastern portion of the site, entire site. So yes, there will be a connection out there. You can see how it panhandles down to that little skinny area. What you're not seeing is the other side of that on the south side of that little skinny area is an existing section of roadway with a cul-de-sac on it. So that will give us our entire 60 feet of right of way in there when we add the two of those together.
Okay, thanks.
Mark, is it correct that Gateway, that whole development there won't have an access onto Arlington Valley Road? It would have to be off a side road or 67th? Or will they be able to exit out onto Arlington Valley Road?
No, they will be able to exit onto Arlington Valley Road.
They will.
And that's what this creates for them. This and that cul-de-sac that's already existing there will provide for ingress egress to the property onto Arlington Valley Road.
Through another road. I mean, they won't come off their property directly onto Arlington Valley Road, or will they?
No, they will. They'll construct their portion of the improvements on their property out to that, where you see it next down to that 15 feet.
I don't have the map in front of me.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I just
So if you're going down Arlington Valley Road, if you look to the west, there's a little stub road that's already constructed, curb gutter, sidewalk, and a half of a cul-de-sac. That is the bottom half of that little skinny piece there. So they'll come off of their property onto that existing stub road, and then that ties into Arlington Valley Road.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Let me see if the illustrative map it should show all of that. It does.
Okay. Thank you.
I had a question too.
So Mark, my question is dealing with the other end towards 67th. So I don't really recall a lot of discussion in transportation about what the purpose of this road, or even really what this road is. So is it to move our industrial trucks, several ways down Arlington Valley Road? But then so my concern is coming on to 67th is, of course, the trail, Centennial Trail, is more traffic cutting across there. So is it part of our comp plan? Or our transportation plan?
The 187th extension is part of our comprehensive plan. If you notice, it does not extend all the way to 67th at this point. There are two parcels in between 67th and the terminus of this dedication.
Yeah, that's what I noticed.
So it won't occur until sometime in the future. We tried to work with the developer to provide for public access across where the existing access is into the old mill site there. And they didn't want to provide for public access into the property. So we just made sure that we had a provision in here in order to provide for a future connection at some point in time.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I had one more question. On the 67th, where you would go onto the Stillaguamish Valley Road, you'd turn east onto it if you're going south. So that intersection kind of there where you come out of the Arlington Valley Road is kind of interesting to get across there. So I was wondering if there was any plan or any thought on alterations to that intersection?
Are you talking about the 90-degree intersection?
I am.
Yeah, with the, yes.
It's scary.
So originally we looked at that in order to extend that further to the south to 188th,
Yeah.
so that we could have a signalized intersection at 188th.
Is
The
that what you
problem being
straight down on at the corner of the Stillaguamish Valley Road where it kind of dead ends and then you go? It would go straight
right.
across. Okay.
Problem is that's all wetlands in
Yeah.
between there and 188th, and so it was.
A big
We'll have
bridge.
to work on that and figure out mitigation plans in order to extend to the south at some point in time.
Hmm. Okay.
It just wasn't something that was possible during this
Yeah.
grant cycle and roadway construction cycle. So
Because that's going to be kind of interesting there as the development happens and more traffic is on that road. So,
right.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Mark.
So then the last one is this little strip that you see. This is on Arlington Valley Road. It's so small because it's only 1 foot wide. And so it doesn't show up in the graphic very well, but that dark line, black line there, that's an actual dedication of a 1 foot strip off the eastern boundary of their property. This is to accommodate for a future trail section to be built there.
Okay. I like it.
Hopefully wider than 1 foot.
We own existing right of way already, so the 1 foot is just to allow us to construct the trail fully.
It'll be a balanced beam park.
That's right.
A yoga balance walk. All right, any questions for Mark on that one?
No.
All right, thank you so much, Mark.
Great, thank you.
Okay, we have one last thing on our item on our agenda, which is the York House discussion. Oh.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, this was a request made by council early in January, and we just finally now are getting it on the agenda as a discussion item about the York House at York Park. I believe the discussion is primarily around whether the house should be removed or not. Just start to start the discussion out, I wanted to let council know that if the council does elect to have the house removed, this isn't going to be something that's going to happen quick. There's actually quite a process involved with demoing that house. We've done some testing on it. We know that there's some asbestos and lead that has to be dealt with inside the house. So it would have to start with an abatement of that before we could have the house demolished. We'd also have to get a permit through Puget Sound Clean Air for it. Our employee, Kurt Patterson, who retired last year, used to be the employee that did this work for us. He abated several buildings that we've taken down over the years. Unfortunately, he retired, so I don't have anybody on staff that's been trained up with that. So it would mean retraining somebody. So I just wanted to, as council's having this discussion, just let you know that if that's the route you choose to go, it won't be something that's going to happen very quick. So with that,
Recognize that Brittany Kleinman has joined us from the Parks, Arts and Recreation Commission. Thank you, Brittany.
You're welcome, Madam Mayor. Happy to be here.
Deborah?
Could we hear from Brittany what the Park Commission has discussed and what their thoughts are on this, please?
Yeah, I'd be happy to share. We had a park meeting a couple weeks ago, and this was a big discussion that we had. The majority of the commission is not in favor of actually tearing down the house right now. We'd like to see the property go through the docket system again in hopes of having it rezoned and be able to sell it. The park commission doesn't feel that it would be wise use of our park funds to pay for all of the fees to get the house ready to demolish and then demolish it. We don't feel that the costs would not be recouped in selling the house once it was removed.
Jessica also had a hand up.
So I had two questions. One was on the steps you mentioned, Paul, for the abatement, the permit, and then retraining staff. What's your estimate on time for each of those steps?
I don't have a time estimate. I didn't put a time estimate together. I just wanted to let, council know staff is busy, particularly in maintenance and operations and things, because, we don't have the DOC crew anymore. So we're doing a lot of that work on our own, power. So I just wanted to make the warning that it wasn't going to be a quick project. It'll have to be scheduled into work plans down the road.
And then my second question was, what was the estimated cost of removal?
We were thinking somewhere in the $30,000 to $40,000 range with the abatement.
Can you give like a rough estimate? Like, are you thinking a year, 2 years?
No, it'd be several months.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Deborah had her hand up as well.
Was this in our 2021 budget?
No, we didn't budget for the removal. No, it was not put into the budget.
And so I'm going to estimate it's going to be 40,000 or plus because everything goes higher these days. So where would it come out of the budget? And it would be a budget amendment, correct?
It would be a budget amendment. It would have to come out of either the Parks Capital Fund or possibly the Program Development Fund, which council can make the budget amendment for either one of those funds for it.
So Program Development Fund, what does that fund do? Help me. Is that what helps to get jobs done in parks?
The Program Development Fund is like right now where we're putting the construction related sales tax and things that we're using for facility money. So it's a place to house our ending fund balance until council transfers that at the end of each year.
So if it's $40,000, I guess when I think of spending money on a project like this in my household, I think about what am I not going to be able to do that maybe was on my list of to-dos, and I have to prioritize things. So I guess that's what I'm trying to think is what priority is not going to get done. So when I hear capital facilities, I think roofs, I think HVAC systems, I think, the M&O building type of stuff. So do we have a list of things that we know that we have planned on doing that this would take away from?
Well, I think that's a good question, Deborah. It kind of leads into what our discussion will be in April when we have our retreat and we start setting our goals and we talk about budgets and things like that, because we'll need to have the discussion on moving forward. All the departments took a cut in their budgets last spring to accommodate the concerns over COVID. Yeah. And we've also had some positions that we haven't replaced. So I'm kind of preparing in April of talking to the council about those items and how to move forward with those. So that's kind of a side note, but to address your question, there's a bigger picture that we'll be discussing here in a couple of months.
So I'm not comfortable, I'll just put this out front. I'm not comfortable in saying, yes, I want to spend $40,000 until I see a list the items that would not get done for this. And also I'm not comfortable not respecting our park commission's advice, because that's what they're there for. So I think if this is going to move forward, we should do as the park commission suggested and get it back on the docket system. This has been a part of the process since I think like I believe it was 2019, this property was surplused with the intent to sell. And I've not seen a motion come back to take it off of surplusing. So I feel like this is a little bit out of order personally, looking at the history of what our commission or council and the park commission has done. So that would be what I would prefer.
You're correct on that. It was surplus in 2019. It has not been taken off of surplus by the council. That would have to be a council action. However, we haven't listed it again for sale because it's currently zoned public, semi-public, which is very narrow uses and doesn't have much value on the commercial market under that zoning. That was the reason that we were looking at rezoning it.
Okay, so I hands up from Jan, Michelle, and then Marilyn. Sorry, Deborah, didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm trying to make sure everybody's going to be heard.
One clarification then is that would be why the park commission is suggesting it goes back on the docket, correct? Is dealing with the zoning.
That would be the docket item. Yes, would be the rezoning.
Okay,
we said we would dedicate that money to a new Smoky Point Community Park. I'm sure that has something to do with it as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Jan?
Well, first of all, I completely agree with everything Deborah said. And Paul, I know you're saying, okay, we think high 40 grand, but once that house is taken down, it's city property. And it's going to be what? Gutted? It's just going to be a piece of bare land that's sitting in the middle of somebody's housing, and people aren't going to like that. And I can't imagine just a piece of property that is nothing but dirt. So if we have to go in and fix that and put lawn in, then we have to have water. And then you're looking at a whole lot more. And I was thinking when we first did this and was talking about it, and every single member of the council voted to surplus that property. And I remember distinctly that Jessica was the one who read out the section that said all of the money from the sale would go to a park at Smoky Point. And so when you're looking at 40,000, we need to look at further than that, because we can't just tear down the house and leave this bare piece of property that's quote city and whatever dangers that might cause. I mean, we can't do that. So I think if we're going to look at, if they want us to look at something, then let's look at what the real cost is going to be for us to do that. Because I even remember that the corporation or person who wanted to buy the property found that in order for them to make any money is why they wanted to go with triplexes, is because of the cost of taking out the house, bringing the water, the sewer on, and cleaning it all up. So when you're looking at cost, you need to look at a whole lot more than 40 grand and what that is going to cost for our parks.
The property has to be graded out to a point where it can be seeded and we can maintain it. So it has to be flat and able to be mowed, because we can't just let it turn into another eyesore. As far as the budget goes, I can't get any more accurate with the budget until we finish the testing. I have no idea how much asbestos is in that house and what the abatement of it will cost. So step one would have to be to complete the testing and find out what's in the house and what has to be abated before we can set a budget.
Okay, Michelle?
Well,
Marilyn.
oh, first of all, as far as the Parks Commission goes, I think that this isn't anything, my comments won't be any, it's not in that, it's not out of disrespect. I just think sometimes things change. So for me, I think we owe it to that community to tear that house down. It's a safety issue. We talked about it, asbestos, lead, and it's really an eyesore for that community. That's a nice little community there. I spent a lot of time visiting there in the past and just recently and talking to the neighbors. And I guess my eyes, there wouldn't be anything wrong with leveling it off and making an extension and having a place for kids to play soccer or what have you. Just in the past year, there's been 51 phone calls to the police department to come out to that site. There's been simple things like just please check the building. We think there's something suspicious. There's been abandoned vehicles there. There's been drug deals. There's been robbery. There's been all kinds of issues that have been going on there for quite some time. So just in the past year to have 51 phone calls to the police, imagine the amount of times that the police weren't contacted. And these aren't just simple, like someone's on my property. They're issues where people are potentially getting hurt. And there was even one death there. So to have that house there and for the city to know that it is dangerous, and I don't feel comfortable with the community in that neighborhood having to live with that. There was a neighbor across the street that said, I see all kinds of things there. And no, I don't want to see it there. I'd rather see a blank yard where people could at least run. I mean, I got so much information from people there and some really good ideas. I think the property's sitting alone. Let it sit alone. Take the fence down, fence in which you need to, and have an extension. But I know that's not what we're here to discuss right now. But also we think about all the units that are going up in that area. I guess north of that neighborhood. 725 units right now. Times however many people live in those units. I met so many people that come and use that park from the villas and the other apartment building there. I think that the city does have an obligation to tear the house down. And I feel like there's 51 incidences that support that, plus the number of incidences that weren't reported that maybe people just didn't want to get involved and call the police. Because sometimes there's, ramifications on that for them. And it seems like this has been voted down for the last 2 years. I wasn't here 2 years ago, but I was certainly sitting out in the audience listening. And for me, the house needs to be torn down. And if it costs us $40,000, it costs us $40,000. And I think it's important to do for that community. And that's what I have right now.
Thanks, Michelle. Do you know on the stats, I imagine you got those statistics from the police department. Mm-hmm. Did they separate out this property or York Park from those calls, or were those calls?
They gave me it was the address of that house, since that's the address in question, right, is the actual house itself.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Marilyn and then Jessica.
Okay, this is complicated, but I agree that the house needs to be demolished. It's just about how and when. And so, we've been through this. I don't remember voting on tearing down the house previously. And as far as police calls, the Villas gets more than that itself in police calls. So I'm not sure about 51 calls to an abandoned house. I'm not sure. That seems, I understand it's true, but it seems like a lot. So unfortunately, in September, when we voted on the docket was five zoning categories. So that on number 1, we voted to add these additional zoning categories. so that there'd be the commercial corridor, I believe it's called, on Smoky Point Boulevard. And then the entire York Park neighborhood would become residential moderate zoning, which was much denser zoning than was currently there. So on number one, we voted, yes, we want to add this additional zoning, which incorporated the York Park neighborhood. So that made it higher density, which made it more feasible for a developer to buy that property, or perhaps approach another owner in the development to sell their property and build it to the current zoning that we just voted on that night. Okay, that was number one on the docket numbers. Number 6 on the docket was whether we rezone the public space to residential moderate density, which would match what we just voted in, to allow the development of that public space to be the same as the development. Well, we had comments from, and that failed 4-3. And now Jessica thought it was spot zoning, but I don't understand how that works. I mean, I don't think our city and our employees and our attorney would allow us to vote on something that was illegal. So spot zoning, I don't understand how that thought got there. And I do understand where you would be opposed to that if you really didn't want that to develop, you wanted it to be part of the park. And I think that was kind of where Jessica and Mike and Dawn were. They were thinking, yeah, sure, let's just make it a bigger park. Well, that goes against everything that came from Planning Commission and Park Board. And so to just say, no, we're not going to listen to those people that gave their recommendations. We're just going to do something totally different. Instead of suggesting maybe to go back to these boards and commissions and have them readdress the situation, it just got voted down. So because it got voted down, it got taken off the docket. So it's no longer on the docket, and the docket closed on, I believe it was January 31st. So now there is no opportunity to put this item for rezone back on the docket. And so it'll have to wait until next year to go on the docket, which means nothing could probably happen in this for rezoning it until maybe the latter half of 2022. Would you say that was correct, Mark?
Yes, it could be placed on the docket, on the 2022 docket for consideration for rezone.
Okay.
But it is currently with the existing neighborhood. It is an RMOD designation, that entire neighborhood is.
Mm-hmm. So we could have had that piece zoned as RMOD and it could have been developed, and the developer would pay for the demolition of that building. But because we voted it down, that is no longer on the table. So now the choice is, do we wait and put it back on the docket for 2022? Or I guess it'd be for 2022. Or do we let that property sit the way it has for 20 years and wait that time? I am totally against putting that, paying money out of a park fund that our park board has, unanimously said they don't want to do that. So the goal has been for a community park at Smoky Point, and we have funds and we have the ability to gather enough money. We have potential property in mind. We have a lot of things in mind to do that. And enlarging a neighborhood park to a community park goes against our whole comp plan, our park plan. It goes against all of that. So you can't just say, I'm going to change that without going back through the process. So in my opinion, we should not be making any decisions on what to do with that house yet. It needs to go back through the regular process, through park. What do they want? Maybe they want to enlarge York Park. I don't know. I doubt it, but it needs to go back through the process. I think we're totally backwards on this. And unfortunately, because there was misunderstanding on the docket vote for the zoning, that we're in this predicament. So yeah, I think that's it.
Thank you. Jessica, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm kind of surprised by everyone's reaction about this tonight, because one thing I heard while we were talking about it, even as we discussed the zoning, we all agreed that the house needed to go, right? So even though we don't agree on the zoning, we agree that the house needs to go. I really appreciate Michelle going down and actually talking to the citizens that live around there, because Smoky Point isn't represented by any of us. None of us live there. And if there was a nuisance house on your street that was owned by the city, you would be pretty mad that it was still there, and that it was constantly having the police called, and that it was being issues over and over and over again. So I really think that we should rethink this, getting rid of the house as a public safety issue. You know, we don't want to wait 2 more years and make that whole neighborhood have to deal with that, not just an eyesore, but also that it's safety. And the fact that we would take it down would be a benefit to any buyer or developer that's looking at the land. So there's a return right there. So I'm not talking about what next steps would be. I still feel like we should still discuss that. That's obviously something we're not agreeing on. So let's talk about zoning or talk about selling at the retreat or later. But for right now, I think it's really important that we listen to those citizens in Smoky Point and we get rid of that house. Thank you.
Michelle has her hand up again.
Yes, ma'am. So absolutely, if we're going to discuss just the house and we're not going to move any further than that, I absolutely go back to all the disturbances, and we do owe it to the community. It is a safety issue for anybody that might get in there. And we all know too often that happens in many neighborhoods when there's abandoned houses. So yeah, I won't go any further with what I foresee or would like to go back to parks on. I'd just say then that we absolutely need to tear the house down.
Okay, Don.
Couple things to the building. So I heard, I can't remember if it was Jan or Deborah say that if we tore down the building, we would never get that money recouped in the sale of the property. I think if me personally, if I was going to look at a piece of property and there was a place on there that was going to cost me $40,000 to tear it down, I'm going to offer $40,000 less. But if that house is gone, I would think it would have that $40,000 more in value. So my thoughts were that, okay, we tear that house down, pay for with whatever we need to use to pay for it. Once it sells, reimburse the Parks Department the money it cost to tear down the house, and then revisit the whole program.
I like that idea.
That to me, and then you're eliminating, you get rid of the house. You, like Michelle says, you're eliminating 51 calls that our police officers could be going to something more important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if it is a public safety issue, we really have a responsibility.
Exactly.
Chief has responsibility to let the council know and to let the Parks, Arts and Recreation Commission know. Those things should be, I mean, that's the first time I've heard of 51 calls at an abandoned house. Yeah. That's on a week. So it's like that should have been something that should have come up in the conversation or from the public safety liaisons. Somewhere that should have been known.
That
has to be considered.
Did you know that, Jessica? We've never heard that at public safety.
Chief has never talked to me about that house being a public safety issue. So yeah.
I would like a report from the police on that. Not that I doubt it, but also it's a park, and Centennial Park, there's things happening down there all the time. Legion Park, Haller Park. So just because you take a house away is not going to take away, especially when the homeless encampment is in that area also. So you're not going to take away the crime.
That should be something that our chief should weigh in on. You know, how do we mitigate the public safety issues in that area or any area of the city?
Well, I mean, if you think about like the house right there on, oh gosh, Smoky Point Boulevard, and what is that, side street? I mean, that's an extreme nuisance house. It's, you know, and finally, thank you to our police department that we're taking action on that and eliminating that. Once you get rid of that house or the houses that have all the drug activity and the violence, there won't be any place for people to go into these buildings. So you're less likely to have people hide and live in the building. So I believe in, you need to take the buildings down, and you can never get rid of the crime no matter where you live. I'm not saying it's going to get rid of the crime. I'm just saying there's an obligation, and the neighbors have spoke about it, and that's it.
But see, so the neighbors have not come here to council. We've not heard of this. I doorbelled that neighborhood, and other neighbors, other houses have come to council. So again, to me, this is a budget item. It's not been in the budget. It is surplus property. We need to follow due process. There's a reason for that.
Yep. Well, Deborah, I'm not going to second guess why people in that neighborhood don't come to meetings, other than why I believe they probably don't attend council meetings. And I just am not going to say that while we're, you know, being recorded. I just think that there's some people that's not what they do. And I don't know when they were doorbelled. It doesn't even matter to me. I can tell you what happened in the past week, 2 weeks. And so I'm sharing that, and that's my obligation to share that. And no one's going to prevent me from sharing what I gathered from the neighbors in that neighborhood.
I can make a suggestion. It sounds like we're still all over the board on this issue. I think Paul was suggesting that we bring this to our spring retreat in a month and a half. Give the Parks, Arts and Recreation Commission time to do some more research, get some more information that the council has asked for on the public safety aspects, and take a deeper dive at that point in time to lay out. I like what Marilyn said, you're kind of going, showing a process for one side. And if we do have a public safety nuisance issue, everybody on council wants to take care of that. That's always been a top priority. So do you guys mind if we then, you know, give you some time, get some more information? It's going to take Paul a while to get somebody in the staff who's qualified to do the inspections on the buildings again, to give you an exact idea of what the abatement is that's needed. I think the cost, we're going to have to go outside and hire someone to do that, but that cost will certainly be a question for some of you. So we want to bring that true cost. So I'm saying we're looking like April anyway.
What's the date of the discussion you were saying?
The retreat in April. I don't have the date in front of me. It's a Sunday before Easter. April, the weekend before Easter Sunday. Let me say it that way.
With the goal to have some action after that.
Yeah, to see if we can come to resolution as a group on this, and gives Parks, Arts and Recreation some time to weigh into the council. That's their role, and they should have a deep discussion on this.
I'm good with that.
I have April 10th as our retreat.
Is there anybody not good with that?
No, I'm good with it. The subject coming to the retreat with all the information and a recommendation from Park.
Yes, absolutely.
And I would suggest, if you run across more information that you want data on for that discussion, to please let Paul or I know, or both of us know in advance, so we have an appropriate amount of time to pull that data together. We'll get you everything you asked for if we have enough time. And I just want to back up what Paul says. I mean, right now we have our staff's plates overflowing. Somehow COVID did not make life easier, and teleworking did not make life easier for our staff. And every service we provide to our public has had to continue at the full level, as well as all the new development. So it is difficult to find places to squeeze another scope of work in on a staff's plate and expect that we're going to continue to get fabulous work back from them when we overload them. So I'm asking for a little grace that way. Okay. Any other last comments on that? No. All right, Paul, is there any administrative report this evening?
No, nothing else this evening. Thank you.
Okay. And for the mayor's report, again, most of my work, almost all day today, was working on legislative issues. So getting our requests into the transportation budgets and stuff. Jan, I sent you a full packet of what I submitted today, so you could be on top of that as well. And do we have any comments from council members this evening? Jan?
Yeah, I just had one. I had a couple of citizens call today and with a concern, and I don't know how many of you read the story about the town in Florida where some man was trying to poison the water.
A hacker, yes.
And so I guess, and I didn't have an answer for them. They said, do we have anything in place, or is that a concern here? And I didn't have an answer. So I was just wondering if, and I'm sure Jim's already heard about it, but if he could, even in a couple of sentences, give us something we could tell the citizens, because they're a little apprehensive.
I'm meeting with him first thing in the morning. I thought it's something we should put out. Even the town in Florida did say if the staff member at the computer hadn't seen it happen, they did have systems that would have caught that further in. We have such an upgraded facility, I can imagine, but we can get some information that would give comfort for that.
Okay, real good. Thank you.
Marilyn?
Just in addition to that, I remember back when they had all the concerns about terrorists and that, and poisoning water systems. We had that discussion at a council meeting about what if somebody puts poison in the river to kill people. And it was brought up that it would, you know, there are precautions and mechanisms to keep that from getting through our system.
Yeah, daily, it's tested multiple times a day at the water plant.
Yeah, yeah.
Any other comments? Brittany, I want to thank you for being here this evening. Thanks for showing up.
Thanks for having me.
Good to see you.
Good to see you all as well.
Anything else from the council? We had no members of the public that wish to speak to us this evening. So let's take a look and see what you want on consent agenda for next Tuesday. We don't have a council meeting on Monday, it'll be on Tuesday.
I'd like to recommend number 5 through 9.
All of the right-of-way dedications?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would agree.
Yep.
That was easy then. That cuts it in half. There you go, Mark. But you still have other items you'll have to come for. We always love seeing you anyway.
No executive session, I take it?
This evening.
Okay, Madam Mayor, I move to adjourn.
Second.
Question.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Night, everyone.
Night.
Right.